And then there are these grotesque efforts by the American media with blood on its hands. Because the American media, as well as the European media and the UN, but especially the American media, is the propaganda target of Hamas and all these terrorist groups. Because they know about the American media. All you have to do is watch. The American media are trying to turn this into a Donald Trump instigated an event. Or an Israel instigated event. Despite all the evidence against Hamas, despite what Hamas is, despite what Hamas does to its own children and women, despite what they teach them, despite the facts all over the internet, none of it matters. This is why I say the American media have blood on their hands, because Hamas knows more of their children they cause to be killed, more of their women they cause to be killed, the more the world will jump down the throat of Israel, but also now Donald Trump. On my own dime and for my own interest, historical interest, I went to Israel over the weekend. I was in the air half the time, and I don't particularly like long flights. Not that I'm scared of them, there's just nothing to do. And so it took me, all told, about 14 hours to get there, and all told, about 16 hours to get back at 11 o'clock this morning, my time. The United States moved its embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. The United States has recognized Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. It has been, in effect, the capital of the Jewish people for, say, what, 3,500 years? Evidence abounds. Coins, pots, writings, real stuff, archaeological findings, evidence abounds. And nowhere is there evidence of the Palestinians. No coins, no pots, no nothing. Because there weren't any Palestinians. The whole notion of Palestinians is a fiction created by none other than Yasser Arafat. And yet, the language sticks, doesn't it? It sticks. The right to return. The right to return where? The right to return where? It was a wonderful ceremony. All kinds of dignitaries and all kinds of just regular people. There were, I would say, less than 20 members of Congress who came. Every one of them was a Republican. Every single one of them. Every single one of them was a Republican. In 1995, the United States Congress voted that the United States should move its embassy to Jerusalem. The Senate voted 95-0. They put a provision in there that a president could waive it every 6 months for national security or foreign policy reasons or whatever. And every president keeps waiving it, except one. He waived it once, but no more, Donald Trump. As recently as last year, June 2017, I misspoke. It was 93-5. I'm looking at my notes here. It was 93-5 in 1995. There was another vote in 2017 underscoring that we should move our embassy. That vote was 90-0. 90-0. Donald Trump on December 6, 2017 announces that's exactly what we're going to do. And all of a sudden, it's a provocation. All of a sudden, even though Congress overwhelmingly has voted for it, decade after decade, all of a sudden it's Donald Trump's fault that there's a provocation, the Iranians are angry, the Islamo-Nazi regime in Tehran, Hamas, part of the Muslim Brotherhood, a terrorist group by our own names, by our own State Department and other countries, all of a sudden they attack and it's Trump's fault. This is our media. Our pro-Iranian regime, pro-Hamas, pro-North Korea, pro-Cuba, pro-Russia, pro-China media. Our media. Now, I'm going to tell you something the media in this country will not tell you, folks. Donald Trump is loved in Israel. I have never seen anything like this. Placards all over Jerusalem and other parts of Israel. He is revered in Israel. He could get elected there with 80% of the vote, I believe. He is revered by their scholars and by the people in the streets for doing this one thing. Doing what our Congress said it should have been done since 1995. So while there are people in America who absolutely hate Trump and wish he'd get hit by a bus, and that includes almost every member of the media, in Israel it's completely different. It's completely different. They love him. And they love him because he, among our presidents, finally recognized a historical fact. Ladies and gentlemen, when we talk about the temple, there were two temples in Jerusalem. The first one was destroyed by the Babylonians. That's a historical fact. The second one was destroyed by the Romans. That's a historical fact. Two temples. Now, on that second temple, sometime after it was destroyed, the Muslims built a mosque right where the second temple was. The Temple Mount is what they call it. The Temple Mount. And they claimed a holy right to that entire area. And Islam came to be long after Judaism and long after Christianity, for that matter. In the 1967 war, something happened that was never expected. Israel was attacked on all sides. Israel not only pushed back the enemies, Israel took back Jerusalem, which was taken by the Jordanians in 1948. Israel took it back in 1967. But Moshe Dayan, the general there, did something, unfortunately in my view. The Temple Mount, where the Muslims built that mosque, he left it in their hands. That is, the hands of what we now call the Palestinians. The Jews are not even allowed to go up there and pray. They're not even allowed to go up there and pray. Now tell me, does this sound like a people? Does that sound like a government that just likes slaughtering people? Does that sound like a government that wants to kill women and children? All over Israel. They not only protect Jewish sites, many of which were sacked by the Arabs and the Muslims and the Jordanians and whatever you want to say. They protect Christian sites and Muslim sites. Does that sound like a government or a people who have to kill little kids? What has Hamas built? What has Hamas done? What has Hamas done for its own people? What has Hamas done in the Gaza? What have they done? Despite billions and billions and billions in charity pouring in there. What have they done? They built tunnels. They buy rockets. They build military outlets. They fund their army, their militia. The hell with the people. They teach their little babies to be suicide bombers. They teach their mothers to encourage them to be suicide bombers. What kind of people do that? The reporting in this country is so grotesque. Israel is a civilized society. America is a civilized society. The Gaza is not a civilized society. Hamas runs it. It's a police state. It's a terrorist state. 50,000 people come to the border at the direction of Hamas. Some untold large number of them are terrorists. What are they supposed to do? We had 1,000 people in a caravan come up from Central America. Day after day, what are we going to do? Oh, the caravan, 1,000. Oh, my God. We got to protect our border. We can't let them in here, blah, blah, blah. What if among the 1,000 were 500 terrorists? What would we do if they sought to breach our border? Would we process them? What would we do? What if they came to our border, 50,000 strong, or in our case, 1.3 million strong, and they were throwing Molotov cocktails? Some of them were actually armed. They had as their goal to breach our fence in order to kill our people, in order to kidnap people on the border. What would we do? We complain about our southern border, and we should. And we should. But we don't have a terrorist regime on our southern border. We don't have 150,000 missiles aimed at our cities on our southern border, or our northern border for that matter. Well, Israel does. But that doesn't matter to Joe Scarborough. That doesn't matter to the White House press corps. Tonight, they're going to be very comfortable. They'll all have steaks or shrimp, cheesecake for dessert, talk to each other about how awful this is and how awful that is. They'll go to bed at night, probably not with their wives or husbands, probably with somebody else. They'll wake up in the morning and attack and attack and attack America. Attack and attack and attack our president. Attack and attack and attack the Israelis. As they defend, whether they admit it or not, terrorists and police states all over the world. If Joe Scarborough, Mika Brzezinski think the Israelis are the problem and Hamas is not the problem, then get your ass over to the Gaza and report from there. Have your little circle table there and let's see what happens. Maybe the whole White House press corps to give it a shot, see what happens. They'd run to the Israeli side so fast, they'd win gold medals. And that's the truth. An Iranian group has just offered $100,000 to bomb our U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem. And I'm sure the American media will blame us.